What is the safest pocket knife for everyday carry that you can have? We got an opinion in this video, and I'm going to explain why a knife like this is the safest pocket knife that you can carry. And in this video, I'm going to do a review of these 3 budget out the front knives and tell you what I like and dislike about all of them, and it might surprise you which one was the most reliable. Hit that subscribe button down there. Check this out. If you own a boat, and especially if you fish, you have multiple knives on board all the time, and you need to have one of these in your pocket so you have a sharp blade that you can get to and put away safely with one hand. First, why is an out the front knife safer than a standard lockback knife? With a lockback style folding knife and most other folding knives, when you open the knife, your thumb is on the blade. Not a big deal because it's on the side of the blade. But what about when you have to close it? This particular knife has a liner lock, which means your finger is in front of that blade when you start to close it. Also, with a liner lock style blade, or even one with a lock on the back, you can end up with one of your fingers, like this middle finger, just slightly hanging over that edge and get sliced as that blade closes. Very easy to do if you're in a hurry, not paying attention to exactly what you're doing, you got your mind on something else with your work. Very easy to get cut closing a folding knife. That is never the case with it out the front. Very easy to operate one-handed in and out, and your fingers never have to touch the blade. So these are the 3 budget knives that we're going to review. When I decided I was going to get an out the front, these knives were not legal to carry in Virginia, so I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money on one, figuring if it ended up getting confiscated, I wouldn't be out a whole lot. From left to right, we have the Titan, the AKC F16, and the Lightning. I actually bought the AKC F16 first, quite honestly, because I thought it looked kind of cool. This knife works like all of them, has a switch on the top, push forward to deploy it, and then pull it back to stow it. As you can tell, the finish wore off of this thing pretty quick. During the first week, the little decorative scale fell off, and I had to glue that back on. Lost a screw right here, and basically, after about 6 months or so, maybe 8 months, this knife started to malfunction. If I do this, there it is. See there? There's malfunction. So at that point, you got to give it a shake to get it to re-engage the release. So the F16 was the first knife I had. Again, malfunctions now after about 6 to 8 months. So honestly, I don't know if I'd get another AKC just because of that experience. And the place I bought it from didn't sell the screws, so I can't replace that either. The AKC F16 sells for about 60 bucks. The next knife I went ahead and bought was the Titan. This is a little bit bigger knife. I like that it had the skateboard tape on the handles. We use these things for fishing a lot as well as everyday carry. As you can see, I've wore some of the skateboard tape off of it. This makes it real easy to hang on to when your hands are slimy from dealing with fish or bait or whatever. This knife is snappy. It's got a big blade on it, and pretty powerful spring, semi-serrated dagger blade, and it actually did a pretty good job. It's great for cutting rope if you're getting a problem on the boat and you need a knife that can cut rope in a hurry. That serrated edge does a really good job. And overall, it was a pretty dependable knife. It's just been recently cleaned. The springs have gotten a little bit weak on it, but I did have some malfunctioning difficulties with this blade during deployment. It's a pretty heavy blade, and you can tell this knife was used a lot over about 2 years. Began to malfunction a little bit, so I decided I would try another one. The next budget OTF I decided to try was the Lightning. This is available on a couple of different websites. They sell for about 30 bucks. So I didn't buy this first because it's just so cheap. I figured certainly this thing's quality is going to really stink. You can see how the finish is worn off of this thing over the couple years that I've been carrying it around. It gets used every day as well. Everything from opening boxes to even cutting bait in a pinch. Cutting a fish hook loose from our mate when he got a fish hook in him. Believe me, if you need a knife in a hurry, you'll really appreciate having one of these in your pocket. This knife, I gotta tell you, has worked flawlessly. You can tell the blade has a little bit of wear on it, a little bit of scratches. That's because we saltwater fish, got a little surface rust on it, had to clean it up. But this knife has never malfunctioned. 2 years of carry, it works every single time. I've never had a problem with the blade deploying, and it stays pretty sharp. Out of these 3 knives, the cheapest is the Lightning, and it actually is my favorite OTF that I have currently. These are all budget knives. This one sold for about 50 bucks, this one sold for about 50 bucks, and this one sold for about 30 bucks. So if you're in a state where this isn't exactly legal, check your local laws. If you get an inexpensive out the front just to save your fingers, If something happens to it, you're not out a lot of money. But I'll tell you, that Lightning has been a really good knife. Now, how about sharpness with these things? All right, don't think you're going to compare these knives to a Benchmade or an M-Tech or one of the other higher end out the front knives. But I got to tell you, the edges, for the most part, are pretty serviceable for everyday use. You don't need a $400 knife to do work stuff where you're going to have to worry about, are you going to damage it or are you going to screw up the blade. I typically keep a utility edge on my knives, and what I mean by that is basically my knives have a serrated edge to them. Even the smooth edge, I sharpen them with a very rough sandpaper belt, very gently, and then polish that off with some leather, and it cuts very good on things like flesh and bait and stuff like that. But honestly, that side's pretty good. That's a serrated edge. It's okay. Right now it's not super sharp. It'll get the job done, but it's not a razor blade. And that's just because it hasn't been sharpened. The AKC actually held the edge probably best of the three, but it also made it a little harder to sharpen. If you have a belt sander type sharpener, it really goes a lot easier. This knife, it's pretty sharp still. Not super duper sharp, not as sharp as I would like. And it'll definitely get the job done. Any of these knives can be sharpened up to a razor finish. I have not sharpened any of these in probably a month. So this is the Lightning. This is the sharpest of them. In fairness, this is the one that I've sharpened the most recently. And you can see it does a pretty good job. For most of my touch-up work, I either use a ceramic rod or this diamond hone. I'll put links to these in the description below. These are great for serrated, by the way. They actually fit right in those grooves and allow you to sharpen those serrations, which are only sharpened on one side, very easily. So this is the kind of sharpener you need if you have a serrated knife or a semi-serrated knife. Plus, it'll do a good job on smooth edges, and even has a little spot in here for sharpening up fish hooks. It's hard to see, but there's a little groove right in there for things like fish hooks. So which of these three is my favorite, and which one would I recommend the most? I gotta tell you, right now, hands down, it's the Lightning. The finish hasn't held up well. I don't care. This is a work knife. This goes on the boat constantly. It's in my pocket constantly. It takes a fair amount of pressure to deploy that edge out of there. Very safe to carry. You don't have to worry about it going off in your pocket. And at 30 bucks, if something happens to it, you're not out a whole lot. So for a budget EDC, out of these three that I've tried and had for quite a few years carrying every single day, the Lightning has been the best out of the three, actually by a pretty good margin. Also, the question comes up, what if this thing opens in your pocket? Watch this. Kids, don't try this at home. This is my leg with just regular old blue jeans. It's not going to do anything. The blade is designed to be out of engagement. If it encounters any resistance, to reset it, you just pull it out the rest of the way, and you're back in business. So, very, very safe. You can also re-engage it with a flip. So the greatly reduced chances of you cutting yourself with your own knife and an out the front makes one of these the absolute safest knives you can possibly carry. As usual, I'll put links to all of this down in the description below. Give me that thumbs up like button for this review. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.